We're now being joined by Douglas Anderson, who is the founder and CEO of the Wall Street Capital Partners. He's a seasoned finance expert with deep experience in corporate finance, underwriting, private equity and venture capital. He's raised billions in private equity and led multiple high-profile transactions, serving as a CEO and board director across various industries. So welcome, Douglas. It's a pleasure having you on the program.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, so today we're talking about the big debate and the November 5th election that's coming up, much anticipated by Americans and everyone else worldwide, really.
Yeah.
So Kamala Harris has adopted a populist economic message and she's targeting corporations for high prices. Now, how effective do you think this strategy will be in gaining voter trust, and how might it impact corporate behaviour, especially in the retail and housing sector?
Yeah, when she came out with that message, I immediately, being a guy from Wall Street, I said, well, let's see what the numbers say about this. And so she said that the food and grocery industries were gouging the American people. So I simply, these are public companies. They have to list what their profits are, what their revenue is. And so I went and looked and compared 3 years of the revenue and the EBITDA, the profits of what these companies look like, and they hadn't changed. So what had changed? What had changed was inflation. Mm-hmm. So it's not those companies gouging the consumer. It's the money supply. They're printing money and they're spending too much, and that's leading to higher prices.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so both Trump and Biden have seen economic growth rates around 2.3%, despite their vastly different policies. What do you believe has been the key driver of this relatively stable growth, and how much of it can be truly attributed to their individual leaderships?
Well, my philosophy is, you can't tax your way to prosperity. If you want to see growth, you have to give incentives and you have to make it worthwhile for the business and the investor to take risks and move the jobs in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Inflation surged to a peak of 9.1% during Biden's term, with many attributing it to global issues and domestic policies. How much of a role did the government intervention, such as stimulus spending, play in driving inflation higher during that period?
Just huge. It was huge. And I think there's still a lot of money that's on the sidelines for COVID that should be returned to the Federal Reserve, and that's they're still trying to deploy that in the economy, which you got to pay the piper at some time, and it's going to come back and bite us. So I think austerity measures and pulling back on government spending is really required.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now Biden's administration has overseen a significant increase in job creation, with almost 16 million jobs added since 21. To what extent do you think these job gains are organic, or were they simply a delayed rebound from the pandemic losses?
There was a little bit of that immediately following the pandemic, of course. People came back into the workforce, mm-hmm. and you saw that spike. But a lot of these jobs, unfortunately, are government related. And so you're not really seeing private sector strong growth there. And so that's of concern.
Okay. All right. Well, Trump often claimed to have created the greatest economy in history, yet his growth rates don't reflect that assertion. How important is presidential leadership in shaping GDP growth, or are other factors such as global markets and technological changes more influential, would you say?
I don't think that that there's a magic to getting growth. Ease back on the regulations, let the entrepreneurs run their businesses, and you're going to see growth. Every time administrations have cut back on taxes, they've actually collected more revenue for the government because businesses are deploying that capital instead of the government. And typically, you know how to spend your money better than I do, and that's how that works.
Okay, now voters, especially Gen Z, are anxious about inflation and the cost of living. How do you evaluate Harris' economic plans in terms of addressing these concerns, and could her policies lead to long-term economic growth or further financial challenges?
When you examine the plan that she has, most of what I see is spending. And we are at a very, very precarious and dangerous point right now with our GDP to debt ratio. Keynesian economics, where the government intervenes and spends to spur the economy, that goes in an inverse. In other words, it goes in the wrong direction when you're at 90% debt to GDP. The U.S. is at 135% of debt to GDP right now, and that is very, very scary. I mean, we're in potentially currency collapse, territory if we don't turn that around very soon.
Yep. Okay, now I just want to ask you your opinion on how the Americans are viewing these two candidates in terms of, say, their views on the Russia-Ukraine war. How is this influencing what the Americans are thinking about the two candidates?
Well, I mean, I can't speak for Americans, but...
or your general perception.
Yeah, my perception is, unfortunately, I think... The war is largely, our State Department really blundered into that situation. I do see Putin's point of view as far as he felt threatened that here comes Ukraine coming into NATO, and we had promised that we wouldn't do that. And so we were pushing him, and I think that there were political blunders made in our State Department that allowed that to happen. And I do think that, personally, I think, that Trump will end that thing very quickly. I think he'll stop that. I think he'll also find a solution for Gaza too. I mean, there were no wars while he was president, and war is not good for business, it's not good for the economy, and it's certainly not good for people. And I think it's a huge, huge tragedy that all these young men on both sides have been slaughtered like this, and it should stop.
So in terms of foreign policy that each leader will appear to be adopting, is Trump looking more favorable?
I think his absolute mission and goal will be to stop the war immediately. And I don't think that the big military-industrial complex has as strong an influence and hold on him that they tend to have on other politicians. When you look at the top hedge funds in New York, or top ones in the world, the top 3 or 4 are the largest investors in the largest defense companies. And so that's of concern to me. It makes me think, hey, there's an inverse incentive here for them to stop fighting. And it's uncomfortable.
Okay. All right. So I want to talk about your reason for your visit to Turkey. I know you're here to get some Turkish companies on board onto the NASDAQ. But before I do, let's wind this component up. How will the debate look tonight?
Well, the one thing that's predictable about Donald Trump is he's unpredictable. So God knows what he's going to say. And Kamala, under pressure and contemporaneously, tends to be shockingly, word salad, difficult to follow. So it's going to be entertaining. Let's just put it that way.
Entertaining, to say the least. Okay, so how do you view Turkey's economy at this stage?
So the reason I came to Turkey in May, well, first of all, I have to say that my heart's American, but I can tell you my stomach is definitely Turkish. I mean, the food, the culture, the people, they're amazing. I love the country. I love the people. We had that little incident in Izmir a week or two ago, and friends called me and said, "Oh, are you worried about Turkey?" I said, "Absolutely not. If anything happened to me or any innocent person walking down the street of any city in Turkey, in my opinion, I think you would have Turks running to that person's aid and assistance right away. So I think it's a great country. That's important when you're doing business. But the numbers, why I'm here is primarily because of the numbers. I studied the country, and Turkey's recently crossed a couple of critical thresholds. Number one, they're now in $1 trillion GDP. So they've crossed that threshold. They're in the top 20 in GDP in the world. Of that top 20, there's maybe 4 countries that are considered emerging markets. And I think Turkey is the most attractive out of all 4 of those emerging markets. That would be China, Indonesia, and India. I like Turkey the best. There's a number of factors why. Years ago, Erdogan, in my opinion, made a great decision, and the Turks happily followed his advice. He told them, go out and have kids, and so they did. They went and had 2, 3, 4 kids, and that demographic is now starting to move into the, developing workforce and economy. And that's, the US has a problem with demographics, so does Europe. China does, big time. And so Turkey's, very attractive there for business. Turkey's one of maybe a half dozen countries in the world that feeds itself and exports. Very strong there. It's loaded with natural resources, many of which are really untapped or underutilized. It's got a strong military. It's got good government in many ways. Everybody's government, everybody has problems with government. But I can tell you that 10 days out of 10, I would rather have a decision for Turkey out of Ankara than I would out of Brussels. So the fact that they're not in the EU, I look at that as a big positive. And you have this wonderful natural gas, or this gas resource that's been discovered in the Black Sea that is now being exploited by Turkey. And they've also complemented it with a massive modern seaport to take those ships in. So geopolitically, Turkey is going to be an energy hub, a very strategic energy hub for this region. And other ideas that have been floated are, a new canal, Istanbul Canal, that might be a dynamic big trade deal. So you have 2 new ministers, Minister of Finance and a new Karhan, I think, the central bank, new central bank president. Both these guys I've read and I've listened to, and they are pro-business, pro-economy guys. And I think they're starting to come up with ideas and incentives that are going to attract investment and get things going.
So with this visit, how long are you here for?
So we're establishing an office here,
Okay.
and you know, I want to get it going, and then we're looking to we're in talks now with a prominent law firm here in Turkey, Aksan, and we hope to have some kind of collaboration with them, because they see the same thing I do as in terms of the opportunity. Let's take a look at the closest economy to Turkey. The closest one would be the Netherlands. The Netherlands has 38 companies listed on the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ. Turkey has one. You know, Turkey can do much, much better than that. And many of these companies would benefit from being exposed to significantly more of the capital markets around the world than they are currently. And so Aksan recognized that right along with me and said, hey, we'd like to collaborate. Let's see if we can interface and bring some of these companies and expose them to Wall Street and see if they'd like to list on the exchanges there.
And so with your engagement so far, how positive is it looking that you will get more Turkish companies on the NASDAQ? And how many, let's say, is there a figure that you have in mind, or are you just kind of carrying on, trying to bring more and more people on board as you go?
I really think that Turkey could comfortably put, you know, 50, 100 companies on the stock exchange in the U.S. And I also think that you know, Turkey, they're entrepreneurs, they're very Western in their business thinking. And so I think that they would do well expanding into the U.S. And vice versa, bringing some of making acquisitions in the U.S. and growing their companies that way as well. And so I'm very positive about it. That's why we're committed to dedicate an office here and see if we can get that going.
Okay, and on the bigger picture, the objective here is to improve Turkey-American ties as well, and on what level in terms of the economy and the financial world? Is it, you know, increasing volume of trade, increasing volume of traffic? How would you describe that? Yeah,
Turkey has always been a very strong ally of the United States. And it is a very special country. And I think this goes back to Mehmet II and Ataturk. I mean, you know, they basically said, look, we're not Arabs, we're Muslim, but we're going to bridge, you know, we're going to have a tolerance for other religions and other cultures and make people feel comfortable living here and traveling here and doing business here. I mean, Turkey's always been a kind of place that people of all different backgrounds feel safe and comfortable, even in terrible environments. You know, I mean, when negotiations happen, even between enemies, oftentimes they'll come to Istanbul to meet, to feel like they're in a place where both sides can be heard and tolerated, you know.
Okay. And how much information is there, just how much information do lay people have in the United States of the NASDAQ and these companies that are listed on the exchange? Is there much information about Turkish companies? Is there a demand, do you think, or are people just getting to know Turkish companies? What's that scene like in the States?
Yeah, I think Turkey's extremely underrated there, and it'll only take one, especially if we shepherd it through. I think they'll see success, and then they'll be on fire for these companies, because I've studied a lot of these Turkish companies, and they're beautiful. I mean, I've brought some hound dogs to the stock exchange, you know, and these companies are very well run, great products, great management, good numbers, and you bring something like that to the stock exchange, it will be a success because investors will profit from it, and people will get on board.
And what about some information on companies established by Turkish migrants in the United States? Are there significant companies there that will also be listed on the stock exchange or are already listed on the stock exchange?
As far as founders of companies that are Turkish in the U.S., I'm sure there are several success stories. I'm embarrassed that I don't,
No, you don't.
know, but I'm sure there are. Turks, you cannot leave them alone without working hard and making things go. So I'm sure there's some stories out there.
Okay, so you've established your office here now, is that correct? And you'll be here for a prolonged period?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're working on now, yes.
Okay, all right. Well, it's great having you on the program. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful to be here.
Appreciate your insight on the great debate as well.
Thank you.
And good luck in all your endeavours here.
Thank you.